Hello everyone, this is PsienceWins and welcome to Let's Play Castlevania on the original Nintendo. Castlevania is actually one of the very first games I ever played growing up. Before I owned an NES, I would go with my mom to her friend's house who owned Castlevania and an NES and Tetris, I think. But this is the game I'd always go to whenever we were there and I'd beg my mom to play. I've always liked Castlevania because it's relatively story-driven, as demonstrated by this little cutscene before we open the game. Moving forward, we're going to pick up these two whip upgrades, which will upgrade our whip from the leather whip to the Morning Star to the extended Morning Star. We're also going to pick up our first sub-weapon in the dagger, and if you jump over the castle entrance here, you can pick up a money bag. The timing for jumping over the castle entrance is a little strange, and it comes with practice, but it's easy to do once you figure out the exact squares you can move on. Now, the dagger itself is relatively useless. I'm only going to demonstrate it here. It's just a straight shot out in front of you. And as a kid, that was always the dagger and the axe were the two weapons that I would use most often because it has the most apparent use. Because if I can't reach an enemy, I'm going to hit them with the dagger, and there's lots of times where you have to climb stairs, there's enemies above you, using the axe will help get them. For the most part, we're going to be abusing the holy water throughout this game. The holy water has some very nice properties where it stuns enemies, and it also tends to allow you to just lock bosses in place. Something I've always enjoyed about the Castlevania series on a whole is that they always seem to reuse, not necessarily reuse, but they definitely pay homage to their older titles. There's a lot of enemies that reappear throughout the series, and a lot of them make their appearance right here. For instance, in Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the opening entryway, the castle entrance, which I've dubbed this part of the game itself, has those ghouls that always respawn. Additionally, our first secret in the wall here, our first secret turkey leg can be found. I think it's one of the most well-known Nintendo secrets, and I will be trying to show off as many of the hidden areas as I can. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if I know where they all are, but I have a good idea of where most of them are. Right here, if you break this wall and duck down the platform below, you'll get another secret treasure bag. And we'll get out of the catacombs area here and head back into the castle entryway. Now, this will be a no-death run, but that doesn't mean it won't be a no-damage run. I definitely get hit a few times, mostly for silly little mistakes I personally make. But it's gonna happen. The enemy patterns in the game, even when you're used to them, they tend to be randomized. Additionally, this is one of the only times we're going to pick up this magical elixir, which gives us a few moments of invulnerability. It's not very long, and it's good if you're going to just run across the top area there. Additionally, this area is good for farming points, so if you want to get a lot of points real quick and early in the game, use the holy water and let those enemies just walk into it. We will be using the axe on the first boss, mostly because there's no good platform area for him, and with how he flies, it makes it much easier. Now, that item we just picked up is the double shot, and as a child I never understood what it did. I thought it was something that like multiplied your score. Really what it allows you to do is throw multiple sub-weapons at once. In this case, we were able to throw two axes instead of just one until that axe fell off the screen, and then throwing another. With the giant bat defeated, we're going to head into the second level of the game. Now, I've always imagined this area being the outer wall after playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Another quick secret is if we whip this wall and go into the little crevice, we'll get a crown. Now, these spear armor men are actually really simple to defeat. They only take 2 hits. But they are a sign of what's to come. I think this is Castlevania foreshadowing. because their older brother, the Axe Knights, or the Axe Armor, will definitely take a few more hits. Axe armors usually have 9 hit points, I believe, while the spear armor only have 2. You'll also notice as we go through this, I'm very methodical. And a lot of that's just to force enemy spawns or to allow optimal movement range. Now we're skipping this handle because it's a dagger. This game loves to throw daggers and axes at you, but really we want to keep a lot of what's going on here. Additionally, if you stand on this platform for a few seconds, the treasure box will appear behind you. A lot of people think the Medusa head enemies, are some of the worst in the game, but they actually have a very distinct pattern, and if you stop moving right when they appear on screen, or before they appear on screen, they'll actually fly right over top of you or right underneath you. I killed those 3 back there just to give myself some space to make jumps across the pits. If you take some damage, go ahead and pick up this pot roast. All pot roasts and turkey legs give you 6 pieces of life. Now here we picked up the stopwatch, which I think is a great weapon, sub-weapon in and of itself. It can definitely get you through some tougher areas of the game, but we won't be using it very much. I'm just going to demonstrate it here real quick. Stopwatch will stop all enemies on the screen for about 2 seconds, at which point they all start up again. Now before you continue down here, we'll turn around, whip this wall for another pot roast if you took some damage from those Medusa heads. And as a child, I thought that using the stopwatch at this area for these rising and falling pillars was a good idea, but it's not. Just wait for them to be at the level of Simon's head, and then you can run right underneath them. Trying to get this bat to jump down. We actually don't even have to fight him, because if you make a small jump right at the edge of this area, he'll fly right over top of you. Now I want to pick up a new double shot. Every time you pick up a new sub-weapon, you lose your double shot or your triple shot if you get that. Take out this second bone pillar, we're just going to press ourselves against this wall and jump and swing our whip. With a fully upgraded whip, we can easily reach him. It is a little bit abusive of the hitboxes in the game, but that's fine. It makes it slightly easier for us to get through. Now here's a perfect example of the Medusa heads flying over or underneath you if you just stand still. And of course I get hit. Now the second boss is the Medusa Queen, or Queen Medusa. You can stun lock her right away if you just turn around and throw a bottle of holy water, and then just throw them every half a second afterwards. Also, if you hold down the attack button after you pick up the orb, Simon will swing his whip, and you can end yourself in various poses in different states of whipping. Alright, moving on to the third level, we just got the first triple shot of the game. And there's 2 ways to take care of these flea men. You can either jump up at them and smack them like that, or you can wait for them to jump down towards you. I prefer the jump down towards you method. It lets me control them a little bit better, because if you miss that whip, they're going to hit you. If for some reason you got hit by them during this little area, there's an extra chicken right there. I've always considered this just an extension of the outer wall itself. And these crows or ravens are absolutely the worst enemy in the game. Everyone complains about the Medusa heads or the flea men, but in my opinion, it's the ravens. I haven't figured out how to force them to go to different heights, I try and jump to make sure they stay at my level, but it never seems to work. If you duck underneath there, you can get another secret treasure bag I was just shown. Now here's another area that I find really funny. If you watch the attract mode, you'll see Simon or the computer jumping over these Medusa heads. But if you just run forward, you can actually walk right over top of them. Here will be one of the very last times we ever exchange sub-weapons in the game. I strongly recommend using the cross for this level. It gives you just a slight advantage for distance, and there's a lot of pits that, from fireballs from the bone pillars coming up, that you can easily get knocked back in. Another secret, if you duck right over these two ledges, you can get one more bag of treasure. And here is the bone pillars. Now you can actually whip their fireballs, but I find it easier just to throw the cross in front of you. The cross actually in this game is called the boomerang, because Nintendo tried to censor a lot of holy and religious imagery. You definitely want to get the double shot here if possible. There's an example of the knockback. I almost fell into the pit in this one. If I was just a square backwards, I would have been dead. Now this new area with these crows or these ravens, it's a little bit easier than the last one. Most of these you can just jump up and hit. There's not a bunch of pillars or steps that you need to go over. And every time you see that screen clear, that's it's a holy cross, which surprisingly wasn't edited by Nintendo when this game came out, because it's very obviously a religious Christian cross. Alright, here we're picking up the triple shot, maybe for the first time in the game. If you press yourself against this wall, you get a trolly little treasure bag which you can't collect. Before you fight the two mummies, make sure you grab that turkey. Now here I just spam the crosses. You may get hit once or twice, but you'll kill the two mummy men way before they kill you. And that is the end of the easy part of this game. Everything from here out is nerve-wracking. We start this level with another mini cutscene. We're going to drop into the underground cavern. We're going to make sure we pick up as many hearts as we can here. This is actually a really short level. Now I'm not going to get the candle above us because it's a stopwatch. And while that is beneficial for this area, what we want is the holy water coming up a little bit later. I wait until the bats and the platform line up. It usually takes about 3 bats. And then I kill the last bat and jump on the platform real quick. We're going to follow the same strategy here. This one's a little bit more important because if you jump on the platform and a bat spawns when you're riding it across, it's likely that the bat will drop a sub-weapon that you can't avoid picking up. We want to keep the holy water through the remainder of the game. This is actually one of the toughest parts of the game itself. These platforms move a little bit faster than they did in the second level, and the amount of enemies jumping up and flying past you makes it really hard to time when to go. Here we're going to see a bunch of eagles carrying flea men, and this isn't so bad. You'll notice I hesitate a lot when killing these guys for that exact reason. The flea men tend to drop the axe sub-weapon, and again we want to make sure we keep that holy water through the rest of the game. This isn't a bad part here as long as you're not just trying to run forward. As long as you take your time and kill every flea man that drops before it hits the ground, you won't have very much difficulty getting through it. It takes a little bit longer, but it's worth it. Here we fight our first white dragon. And I find the best strategy for these guys is just to stand a whip's length away and whip them. The first one you can actually just run past if you just keep moving forward and he won't damage you. Here we're going to skip the second candle because there's a dagger in it, and this game loves to throw daggers at you even though it's the worst sub-weapon in the game. Here, same strategy, about a whip length away from the white dragon. Crouch down and smack him a few times. You should die relatively quickly. It takes about 6 hits for each of them. And pick up this turkey so you don't die on the next one. I like to throw a few holy waters at this one, just to stun him a little bit before he starts shooting fireballs at me. This is another one where I strongly suggest just standing a whip's length away, whipping at him until he dies. He will always drop a double shot, so make sure this one you do kill and don't run through him. And here we'll come to Frankenstein's monster, and Igor is what I like to call him, even though it's just a flea man. Here, if you just throw a bottle of holy water every half second, you can stun lock him until he's dead. Once he's dead, make sure you grab the triple shot up here. We will need it for death. If you want, you can grab the extra heart, and then grab the soul orb to complete the level. I'd like to start out this level just by throwing a quick holy water. It takes care of those 2 flea men. And I've always thought of this as the alchemy lab, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. There's a couple areas in here where there's just random tables in the background that seem to have vials on them. Also, you'll notice that a lot of times in this game you can avoid the stairs completely and jump across gaps or up onto the next level. Now, the skeleton enemies aren't so bad. They're easy to manipulate. You can force them back and forth just by walking. They will follow your direction. They usually stay a little bit over the length of your whip away from you. Moving forward, if we press ourselves into this wall, we'll come to our first one-up in the game. The first and only one-up in this game. We have got a few one-ups just from points so far. We've got 3. But there's not very many one-up drops. That's the only time you'll find one. Now, the red skeletons can be a pain, and if you're able to whip them and force them off screen, they'll usually despawn. Make sure you break this little wall right here to make sure you get this turkey if you're low on life. And finally, we meet the dreaded axe armor. These guys aren't so bad. Just make sure that if you have the holy water, usually you can just jump up and throw one directly on them. Here I don't have that luxury, so instead I just throw a bottle in front of me, then walk backwards. Much like the skeletons, they will follow your movement. Same strategy here. Before you press up, make sure you jump. I'm gonna wait for this dagger to despawn. That candle right there always holds an axe, so just avoid it for the moment. Another example of being able to get the red skeletons to despawn. Make sure when you whip them, they get off screen pretty quickly. And another axe armor we're easily able to take out with the holy water. If you wait in this little area for a few seconds, another treasure bag will appear on the opposite side of the wall. And honestly, at this point in the game, don't be afraid to abuse holy water. Holy water does about 3 or 4 hits on an enemy. stun locks them, keeps them in place. I think you can walk through enemies if you have hit them with the holy water also, but only when the holy water is active on them. Another little secret, stand in this corner for a few seconds, another treasure bag will appear. Now, this axe armor would be a lot more easy to take care of if I hadn't got that secret treasure a moment ago. Since I get hit, I'm just going to use my invincibility frames to murder him. Usually if you jump up and throw a bottle of holy water, they'll walk right into it. I'm gonna go over here, jump off this ledge, it'll force you to duck on this extra platform for another treasure bag right underneath it. Now, one of my runs, there was actually 2 red skeletons down this little stairway, and it's odd because normally there's this one. This is the normal spawn. But I think what happened is I had killed one of the red skeletons right in the corner, and when he revived himself, he just popped up on the left side of the wall instead of the right. Alright, moving on, we can't use the cross anymore to take out the bone pillar, so just get within a whip's length and smack him 6 times. Make sure you pick up all the hearts you can in this area. We're getting close to the next boss. We're going to skip that candelabra right there because it holds a cross, and we really want to keep the holy water for the remainder of the game. You can avoid this bone pillar's fire if you just stand a few steps below it. Make sure you always pick up your chicken within a few seconds or else it will disappear. And this is one of the most dreaded areas for people. If you have the holy water, usually you can just jump forward and throw one, and it'll automatically smack the armor, the axe armor. It's not too bad to take care of once you have the holy water. Most of these candles only have treasure in them, and we have more than enough hearts to take out death. Just make sure you get the screen to stop scrolling, and then jump up and start throwing holy water bottles directly where death is supposed to spawn. It'll stun lock him, he won't be able to summon his size, and you'll complete the level very quickly. Alright, final level of the game I've always called the Castle Keep. There's also hints of the clock tower here. So here we're going to try and avoid these giant bats as much as possible. My suggestion is when they're above you, jump and whip them really quick and then move forward. When they're below you, be prepared for them to come at you and just jump over them super fast. Usually if you jump twice in a row, you should be able to avoid all the pits and the bats. Alright, once we get into the clock tower itself, we're going to make sure we pick up a couple hearts. This stage, because it's so short, has very few opportunities to get hearts. It's also one of the few stages that I will barrel through because there's just a lot of randomness to it. I'm going to skip this, it's a dagger, but we'll get the second one. And moving forward, here is the last treasure, or the last chicken leg that you'll be able to find in the game. Now, if you move to the right here and duck on the edge of that gear, you'll get one last secret treasure, but I find it's a death trap, so instead just drop down, climb the stairs, turn around, whip the eagle, and keep climbing the stairs. Sacrificing 8 health to pick up one treasure just isn't worth it. Now another good little trick here is if you don't have enough hearts, get these few candles. We're going to skip this one because it will always be a cross. And then go back down the stairs towards the clock tower and climb back up. All the candles themselves will respawn. You can pick up the hearts again. We probably had enough hearts coming into this level, but it's a good strategy for if you died during the fight with Dracula. Now Dracula himself has two forms. The first one's relatively simple. The most you have to worry about here is his teleporting on top of you. What I suggest doing is moving around as much as possible, and then when he opens his cape, wait till the very last second when he fires his 3 fireballs, jump over them and smack him in the head. You'll notice that he will try to jump to teleport right on top of you. Try to stay away from the corners and the center of the room if at all possible. Those seem to be the areas that he transports to most often. Additionally, this is the longest and most boring part of the fight. You'll notice that I'll make some quick turns here and there. You can't see it in the video itself, but he does seem to phase in right before he actually drops on top of you. And depending on how close I am to his hitbox is how I'll decide if I'm going to go right or left. Now here, if you have the triple shot in the holy water, throw 2 holy waters right as Dracula changes to his second form, right at his feet, and then alternate between jump whipping him in the face and throwing another holy water at him. We'll stun lock him completely. He'll die in a few seconds. You can collect his soul orb, throw your whip around in celebration. You hopefully completed Castlevania without dying. To be honest, it's not something I recommend. I strongly recommend trying to just play the game, having fun with it. Doing this game without dying was one of the most stressful things I think I've done in a while. I'd always get to right after death and die from a random flea man climbing up the clock tower, or I have a bat drop axe directly on top of me, which I didn't need. Back in the good old days of video game making, they never gave credit to the programmers, so we have a lot of these terrible puns on famous horror movie actors. Another thing I always missed about something I missed from modern games that was always present in older games was this "thank you for playing" screen. And I always liked when they were like, "and you, the player, for playing our game." In true NES fashion, the game itself does loop. This is the harder difficulty, one more secret shown here, which has some new enemy patterns and more enemies thrown at you. Anyway, thank you for watching Castlevania, and I hope to see you again next week.